What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another video. So as you guys know, mechanics are absolutely critical in Fortnite, especially nowadays when pretty much every player knows how to build and edit to some extent. You've really got to put in some work to be able to keep up and keep your mechanics at a high level. So that's why in today's video, guys, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to improve your mechanics dramatically in Chapter 4 Season 2. I'll be going over 5 of my favorite different ways that you can pretty much just practice your mechanics and improve them consistently. And hopefully by the end of this video, you should have a good idea as to how you can actually improve your mechanics and obviously win more fights, win more games, and just be an overall more successful player as a result. Before we get into it though, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more tips and tricks content just like this in the future, and lastly, if you want to show some extra support, it would really mean a lot to me if you could use code TECHO in the item shop. It's 100% free for you and it seriously does help me out a bunch. So as always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So getting into this video, and the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is piece control. I know it's not a TECHO video unless piece control is mentioned in some capacity. The fact of the matter is that one of the best ways to improve both your building and editing is to do piece control practice. Piece control basically combines building and editing into real techniques that you can actually use in fights. Generally, this consists of just like boxing somebody up. If you don't know, piece control basically means just using your own build pieces to control the fight. But overall, piece control does require a lot of different building and editing techniques. It requires a lot of good movement, and overall, it just requires you to have good mechanics. And by practicing piece control, you can definitely improve them a lot. If you watch any pro player, they constantly use piece control moves in fight to box up their opponents. Not only is it a great way to practice and improve the fundamentals of your mechanics, just the actual patterns that are involved in techniques in a sense, but it also applies into real fights tremendously once you get more comfortable with it, because obviously if you're able to use a piece control technique in a real fight, box up your opponent, you're pretty much going to be in a great situation 90% of the time. Piece control is one of the most commonly used strategies in pretty much all sorts of fights nowadays, so knowing it is going to be super important. So when it comes to actually practicing piece control, what I recommend is Raiders Piece Control Map V3. I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen right now for it. This map works for basically every single skill level in Fortnite, ranging all the way from beginner to advanced. It has a bunch of different beginner scenarios that are super easy, and then it has a bunch of intermediate scenarios. I think it has 17 intermediate scenarios. So these are just regular piece control techniques that you can use in fights. And then it also has a couple of piece control tunnels, which is basically a tunnel that you go through and you keep building and you keep editing through. You can kind of see what I'm talking about right now on screen. But overall, guys, this map is absolutely fantastic. There's really not too much to say about it. So if you're not already practicing your piece control consistently, then definitely get on that. Getting into our second method though, and this one is going to be a specific map, and this one is Raiders Mechanics Map V3. It's the second Raider map of this video, and it is not going to be the last. Raiders Mechanics Map is another fantastic map to improve your mechanics in basically every capacity. So this map has an absolute ton of different features, but there's 3 of them I want to specifically talk about. Starting off, you've got the moving edits. So this one is super simple. Basically, it has you moving back and forth with an edit, and you're essentially supposed to just edit it over and over again. So this kind of helps you get used to different angles when it comes to editing, help you get better peaks and whatnot. And this area actually does help a lot. Second up, you've got the peak training. So this is similar to the piece control map, except instead of just being a regular piece control map where you box up the opponent and shoot, you actually get shot if you peek for too long. So what this does is it basically forces you to do piece control techniques, but also go for an optimal peek while you're at it. This is something that so many players struggle with, especially when they're just learning piece control, so it's especially useful. And finally, the last one I want to mention here is box fights. So the box fight section is relatively simple. It's basically you box fighting against AI. So obviously these AI don't build or anything, but your goal is basically to kind of piece control them and edit around them and whatnot, and try to kill them in the safest way possible. So this does carry over significantly to regular fights. And of course, there are a couple of other scenarios, but those are kind of the 3 main ones that I wanted to talk about. So be sure to check out this map. With that in mind, I'll put the code to Raiders Mechanics Map V3 on screen right now for you guys. It's one of the most useful maps I know for improving your mechanics. Keep in mind, there are other sections that I didn't talk about, so definitely be sure to give it a shot. Getting into our third method to improve your mechanics in Chapter 4 Season 2 though, and this one is going to be build fights. One way to improve your mechanics in semi-realistic situations is definitely to spend some time in build fights. The reason I like build fights in particular for improving your mechanics is because of the infinite materials. That means you get an absolute ton of building practice. You can basically build whatever you want, and you're fighting another player, so you do have to use a variety of techniques. And overall, it's just really solid for all areas of your mechanics. In the past year or two, build fights have kind of become a little bit less popular just because of the popularity of realistic 1v1s and stuff, which are obviously great. But really, when you're trying to maximize the amount of reps you get in with your editing and building, doing something like a build fight is just going to be the superior option. I know this is a bit of a controversial take, and keep in mind, if you're a competitive player or something like that and you're trying to get good at the most realistic fights possible, then you do want to make sure you implement some realistic stuff. But in terms of just improving your raw mechanics and getting better at using techniques, I think the build fights are a great option. With that in mind, I recommend using Raiders build fight map and hopping into matchmaking. By doing this, you'll basically be matched up with a random player and you'll be able to 1v1 until you don't feel like 1v1ing anymore. I'll go ahead and put up the code on screen right now to this map. Overall, Raiders build fight map is pretty much one of the best maps in terms of build fights. It's got a variety of different weapons, an easy reset feature, great matchmaking, and overall it's just a fantastic option. You can use your own build fight map or something like that if you want to, but this is just the one I recommend. With that said, getting into our next method, and we've got free building. Free building is another great way to sharpen your mechanics, get some repetition in, and build up a ton of consistency. What I love about free building is that you can get an absolute ton of reps in for the techniques you do know, which can help you tremendously when it comes to your fundamentals. What a lot of people struggle with in terms of their mechanics is they try to go for the super advanced stuff, they try to learn the crazy retakes, the crazy piece control stuff, but oftentimes they actually neglect just being consistent with the simple stuff. So really getting a ton of reps in with the stuff that you already know is going to be a great way to continue to improve. So what I recommend doing for free building is just hop into an empty map and start building. You can do some specific techniques if you want, maybe try to learn some new ones, or you can build literally whatever you feel like. It's ultimately your choice, but this is a fantastic option for a warm-up or even just for general practice when you're not in the mood to run a whole map or a regular game. And really what I love about free building is that there's really no pressure involved. You can simply turn on some music or turn on an incredible Techo video and just crank until you don't feel like cranking anymore. So overall, it's a fantastic way to improve. It's a super simple method, and I think that a lot of you guys are going to benefit a lot from it. Finally, guys, getting into our last tip for today's video, and this one is to watch pros to improve your mechanics. From watching pros actually play, you can find a huge variety of new techniques to practice and use in your own gameplay. As you know, pros are constantly ahead of the curve mechanically, so if you can find stuff from them and actually use it in your gameplay, you're going to see some big progress. As well as that, even beyond just the pure mechanical standpoint, you can also find new strategies for fighting and learn how to play against even some of the best players in the game. For example, if you watch like a pro in a tournament or scrim or something like that, these are some really good players that they're going against. And if you see them just absolutely rolling through these players, then there's definitely something you can learn. Watching pros is definitely one of the easiest ways to kind of learn some new techniques and figure out ideas as to how you can improve your own mechanics simply by watching them. This is something I recommend all the time for pretty much any situation. Like really, when you think about it, any situation in terms of improvement that you're in, you can benefit from learning from the best players in the world. So if you're trying to improve your mechanics and you're not sure where to go in terms of learning new techniques and whatnot, I definitely recommend you pull up a pro's stream, YouTube video, or anything like that. And I think you should be able to pick up quite a bit from that. If you're looking for specific people, some good people to watch might be Bugha, Polarized, Reet, Tayson, and I'm sure there's plenty of others. And yeah, guys, if you're not doing it already, I definitely recommend you try to sink a little bit more time into just watching pros and learning from what they do. Try not to sit there and just watch it casually, but try to have some intent and really look at what they do in various situations. Really, there's so many details that you can pick up from a pro's gameplay and carry over into your own gameplay. It helps an absolute ton, so this is definitely one of the best ways I recommend you improve your mechanics. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to improve your mechanics dramatically in Chapter 4 Season 2. Overall, by following the 5 different methods we covered in this video, you should find yourself making an absolute ton of progress whether you're on console, PC, or any other platform. Improving your mechanics is actually relatively simple, and it really just comes down to a ton of repetition and doing the right things. So hopefully this video gave you guys a really good idea as to how you can do that. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it. And if you want to see more content just like this in the future, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. And finally, guys, if you want to show some extra support, it would really mean a lot to me if you could use code TECHO in the item shop. It's completely free for you. It only takes a few seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. So as always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.